What's up? Can you guys hear me?
Yep. How are you?
Perfect, perfect. How's everyone doing? This weather's incredible.
Enjoying the nice weather.
Yeah, yeah, this weather is fantastic. It's phenomenal. Yeah, I have all my windows open, AC's turned off.
Like
Yeah, it's
one of
great.
3 days a year that you can do that.
What'd you say?
It's like one of 3 days a year where you can have the
Yeah,
AC or the,
exactly.
the
Let,
windows
let's
open.
uh let's enjoy this while it lasts for next exactly 5 days this week. uh all right.
Thanks for pausing.
Hmm. This one's good. Mm. Come on in. We'll get started in a minute. How's your travel, Dave? You just got back, right?
Yeah, the West Coast is lovely. The temperature is the same here as it is now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's gorgeous.
Where
Beautiful.
where in the West Coast were you?
Vancouver.
Okay, cool, cool. Visiting your son?
No, he did come with us. We were visiting my mother-in-law and
Ah,
eating too much and the regular.
yeah. Okay.
I broke out the wine bong for you tonight.
Nice. Perfect. Yeah, a little bit of air in this thing would be nice. It's touch. It's not reductive, but I just feel like it'll just open up more with some air. So if you guys haven't, if you're just opening this up, um, maybe double decanted, um, put it through an aerator, go back and forth in a few classes. I think it's going to open up quite a bit. So
Are you gonna explain the weird wax thing on
the what?
my bottle has like a very thin layer of wax on the cork?
Yeah, mine does too. Everybody does too. Yeah, it's just their encapsulation system. They're just trying to make sure that it's really an old school way of doing it. But I think it's more fashion than anything else. I don't know. Um, some people like to think that it's functional, but I don't know. I haven't seen enough evidence that putting a wax on the cork makes a wine last longer or age longer. I haven't seen that evidence, so I think it's just more of a fashion than anything else. All right, cool, cool. Well, let's get started. Sure, people will roll in as time goes on. Um, Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the first week of the Cali 3.0 box. Yeah, we're drinking this guy today, tasting this guy. It's got that little surfer on the label. Um, 2022 Florez wines. Shangra-Li Mendo B is what we're tasting today. But before we get into the wine, just a few announcements. Don't have to go through the typical thing. We don't have any new members this month, so all of you oldies are back. So don't need to go through all that name pronunciation, ground rules, and all that. So we'll just keep going with what we normally do. One announcement I do have is Case Club will go live tomorrow. So all those wines that we tasted last month, so all the Basque wines, all the Ica lines are available, as well as some Gorondona other stuff. So I'll put all those up there. So yeah, all that will be going live tomorrow. So watch out for my email. And besides that, I don't really have any other announcements besides, as you all know by now, 6 Foot Wine Club is committed to donating 1% of its gross revenue to an organization whose mission statement aligns with values. And this month, I have chosen DC Hunger Solutions, local hunger fighting organization. Anyways, if you want to donate alongside 6 Foot Wine Club, the link is right there. If you want to learn more about what they do, the link is right there as well. But yeah, that's it for the announcements. Any questions about anything? Cool. In case you're just joining us now, we're tasting this guy. 2022 Florez wine, Shangra-Li Mendo Sauvivi is what we're tasting with this surfer. Very, very Cali label, if you ask me, on the label, which is designed by the winemaker's tattoo artist friend. I found out. Anyways, yeah, so this month we're calling it Cali 3.0, or I'm calling Cali 3.0. So in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinions as well at this point, after John Bonet's book, New Cali or New California, in case if you're interested, you should check out that book. It is a fascinating, it's a fantastic book. Really, I mean, we're just scratching, 4 wines, just a surface of it, but that book really outlines kind of history of California wines, which is kind of American wines history, as well as kind of the evolution that's going through now. And that was kind of a big inspiration. That book came out at this point probably about a year ago, maybe a little over a year ago. But I remember reading that and being quite inspired by it, or at least getting my curiosity up as far as exploring California wines. So yeah, I figure this month we should explore exactly that. So I'm calling Cali 3.0, and the reason behind all of that is, so in my opinion, there's kind of like 3 big kind of evolutionary points in California wine's growth. So the first one really came, so the history is that missionaries came, right, to California, planted all these really old mission grapes. So we're talking about Carignan, a lot of Italian variety, like Italian immigrants, as well as missionaries also came. And the Spanish missionaries also came. So there's a lot of like the South Spain, South France, that like Southwest Languedoc, Roussillon, what goes in there has made its way to California, as well as the Italian immigrants that came afterwards. They also brought their variety. So that all kind of grew. But that was kind of the beginning phase of California. It wasn't anything big. It wasn't really, let alone internationally known. It wasn't even known nationally, really. But that's how kind of the whole wine culture started there. And then, people really caught on. Turns out California is one of the best places in the world to grow grapes, particularly Northern California. I mean, it's a Mediterranean climate, which means it's dry. You get plenty of sunlight. The winter is mild. And you get this huge diurnal shift, which is the temperature difference between day and nighttime, which is a great thing for winemaking. So they discovered that turns out grapes are doing really well. These wines are delicious from California. So people started growing it, making wine, what industry started forming, but it was never anything big and outside of US. And then the first evolution point really came when the Judgment of Paris happened. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with the story, but the story goes, there's a shop in London, this British guy named Stephen Perrier, late Stephen Perrier. He owned this shop in London. It wasn't doing all that well. So as a way of kind of boost sales and get his name out there, get his store out there, he had heard about this California wine. So he flies out to California, tastes all these wines, and realizes these wines are really fucking good. So he decided to put on this competition between California wines and a lot of the French wines at the time, which were considered the greatest in the world at the time, a lot of Bordeaux varieties. And that's kind of what they were growing here in California at the time. So they pitted against, they invited all these wine critics, sommeliers, all these people, and did a blind tasting competition between French wines and California wines. And lo and behold, California wines both won out in both red and white category, and it caused a huge upheaval in the whole world of wine, particularly the French people lost their goddamn mind. They're like, there's no fucking way. There's probably something wrong with the judging. There's no way California wines beat out these kind of regal, great, legendary French wines. So they redid the whole thing. And then turns out American wines won out again. So that kind of put California wines in the international map. And this is really how California wines started becoming what we know as California wines now. The whole industry started forming, a lot of money started pumping in, a lot of curiosity for the international markets started coming in. So that's kind of like the first evolution of California wine. And there's a California 2.0, where the huge stylistically it changes. So first, you're talking about these mission grapes, you're talking about Italian varieties, all these kind of like one-off little things. And then right around the Judgment in Paris, the stylistically changes a lot too. There's a lot of French varieties, a lot of old school, kind of trying to imitate French wines and doing it better than what they're trying to imitate. So that happens. And then the second evolution comes years on the road, right around like 1970s and 80s, leading all the way into the 90s. There's a Robert Parker era. And for those of you, most of you are familiar with the story, but there is this hugely influential American wine critic by the name Robert Parker, who wrote, I always get this shit mixed up, Wine Enthusiast, Wine Spectator. He was one of those. Anyways, so he became this bigger than God like figure in the wine world, and by publishing this wine magazine and being the first one to introduce a 100-point score system. And up until this point, right, it's like the sommelier talked about what they did and all that, and have your feelings about the point system, and I do myself. But it was the first time that really made things really easy for everyday consumer to really understand, or at least be able to prepare, help them make a purchasing decision. Right now, you can just walk into a store and you can see, oh, this one is a higher score than that, and you can just buy that. Right. Whether you believe in the fairness of that judging, whether that was biased towards a particular style of wine, all of that aside, just the introduction of the 100-point system was started by this guy, Robert Parker. And he had and he became very, very successful as well as influential because of that. But he had a very particular palate. And his thing was he really liked these big, powerful, really ripe, high alcohol, high tannin, kind of like punch you in the face kind of style of wines. So there's this stylistic change that happens when Robert Parker comes on and everybody's kind of revering him, following him. By the way, he's not all bad. I mean, it is, have your opinion of Robert Parker. He's, I've heard from many, many industry titans how much he's, if there's one person they've learned the most from when they're getting started in wine around that time was Robert Parker. And, at the end of the day, it's one person's opinion. So I have nothing against them. His style of wine that he really liked and he used to give high scores to are not the wines that I particularly personally enjoy, but nonetheless, that became kind of the international norm, not only in California, but all over the world about chasing basically Robert Parker's palate to get higher score. So that style became a big thing. And for the longest time, that's how California wine, particularly the ones from Napa and Sonoma to an extent, but particularly Napa, were defined. That big, burly, ripe, a lot of new French oak, a lot of makeup on the wine. That was very well, heavily manipulated. But Years later, and we're talking probably within last 10 years, maybe 5 to 8 years or so, we're starting to see this new wave of California wine that's coming in. And that's what I'm calling California 3.0. So we're going through, so the first was a Judgment in Paris, stylistically changed from these mission grapes to French varieties and trying to imitate Bordeaux and doing it very well. And back then it was still very much low alcohol, kind of more nuanced, lighter. And then comes Robert Parker, that's California 2.0, where it was like big, burly, punch you in the face, a lot of makeup, Hollywood wines. Those are the 2.0. And then now comes this 3.0, where it's led by a lot of the young maverick winemakers, particularly natural winemakers in California, that are leading this movement where they're moving away from Sonoma and Napa, which become world famous. Not only because stylistically they're finding something different, but also just real estate price has gone ridiculous. Like it's just a bare land without anything in there, without vineyard or anything else. Costs about $1 million in Napa Valley on the valley floor. So we're talking about it's become an impossibility for a young winemaker to even dream of owning land and farming their own stuff in Napa Valley. So they're moving away from that and going into Sierra Nevada foothills, or finding these really old mission vineyards that have been abandoned and they've been planted to things like Mataro, which is Mourvèdre, but planted by the missionaries from years and years and hundreds of years ago, centuries ago. They're refining those in places like Contra Costa County, LA County, places that you don't usually think of it as a big wine or vineyard-rich places. So they're going there, or they're sourcing it from different parts, like for example, this one, Redwood Valley in Mendocino, from old vineyard that has been there, and then just kind of twisting it up and then putting it in a very different stylistic kind of their mark on it. It's not the typical, the Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Cabernet that we're used to, even Sauvignon Blanc, and we'll start talking about that when we get to tasting it. But this has some benchmarks of California Sauvignon Blanc, but this is not the typical of what we've come to know as California Sauvignon Blanc. So that's the whole point of this month. This whole point this month is to kind of highlight some of that movement, some of the different things that are happening, some of these kind of movers and shakers, different people who are in this movement of the Cali 3.0. So yeah, here we are. Pretty excited about it. I don't usually drink California wines all that much, but with wines like this month, I'll probably drink a lot more California wines. They've been more like this. So here we are. Anyway, that was a long intro, but just wanted to give you a background story of all of that. Without understanding California wine history, you can't really understand American wine history. So there's that. All right. So let's start with the map. So here is California. I don't need to pull up USA map, really. By the way, California makes, in terms of a quantity of wine that's being made, California, nobody comes even close to California. California alone makes more than half of all wine produced in US. So it's a very, very significant player in terms of winemaking. But even within that winemaking, there's inland valleys here, the Central Coast, that makes a lot of kind of a swill cooking. They call it drinking wine, but it's really a cooking wine that comes from here. But everything is along the coast. It's kind of what we're talking about. And it extends all the way down to the South Coast from Los Angeles, going all the way up to San Diego. But really, a lot of that comes from up here, which is where Sonoma and Napa, just north of San Francisco. So San Francisco is right here, San Jose down here. Central Coast, we've had some wines from Central Coast, right? Paso Robles, probably you may recognize this name. But for this week, we're up in Mendocino. So here's a Mendocino, right? And so it's basically San Francisco. Up north of that is Sonoma County, which is up against the coast on the left. there's a huge mountain that runs that divides the Sonoma and Napa. So Napa is on the east. So here's Sonoma. Here comes a mountain range that divides Sonoma and Napa. On the other side is Napa. There's another mountain range that runs on the eastern part of Napa before you get into Sacramento. So that's why Napa is called Napa Valley, because it's a valley. There's two mountains on either side. And you may hear a lot about hillside Cabernet in Napa. That's exactly what they're talking about. You can be in either side, but you might have like a Howell Mountain. That's one of the mountains in Napa. So more high-end premium bottlings come from up on the elevation on those mountainside of the hills. And then it's kind of the cheapest part of Napa comes from the Napa Valley floor, the kind of flat part of Napa Valley. If you ever get a chance, I actually got to do this earlier this year when I was out there, but you can drive through this mountain range from Sonoma into Napa Valley. You don't have to go around. There are highways that take you up through there. And it's pretty fascinating because there's a noticeable temperature difference here. Sonoma is much cooler than Napa Valley. Particularly Napa Valley floor gets quite hot. And on that day when I drove from Sonoma to Napa, it was probably, I shit you not, probably at least 15-degree difference that I could feel. Pretty amazingly hot. It gets pretty amazingly hot in Napa Valley. A lot of that coastal cool influence comes in from the west to the east, gets blocked out by this mountain range here. And then on the other side, it's Napa Valley. And that's why it also defines what kind of varieties grow here, right? And if you go to Napa Valley, we're talking about Cabernet and Chardonnay. And then when we're talking about Sonoma, we're talking about much thinner grape varieties, which are Pinot Noir and also Chardonnay, but yeah, as well. But for all intents and purposes, we're up north in Mendocino, where it gets similar kind of the coastal coolness that brings in all we're talking about very Mediterranean climate, perfect for organic farming. Really, there's really no need unless you're doing some really shitty things in the vineyards. Really easy to farm organically along the coast of California, particularly northern coast. Mendocino, because it's up in north, it gets even cooler than most of these parts. So that's where we are up here, this way. So moving away from Sonora and Napa, getting up into Mendocino, all the way up in the Redwood Forest, Redwood Valley. If you ever get a chance to come up here, it's pretty cool. There's a Redwood Forest where these gigantic redwood trees that are big enough to like car can like drive through. I highly recommend you coming out and checking it out sometime. But yeah, that's where this wine comes from. The fruit for this wine, it comes from Redwood Valley, like I mentioned in Mendocino. However, the winery that this is made in is in Santa Cruz, and maybe I unshared that too quickly. Santa Cruz, for those of you who are not familiar, is down here. You see Santa Cruz Mountains. Santa Cruz, the city of Santa Cruz is down here, famous for surfing, right? The very famous winery from there, Ridge, is in Santa Cruz Mountains. One of my favorite California producers. But the winery for this wine is in Santa Cruz. So they source the grapes from Mendocino, they bring it down to Santa Cruz, and then they vinify it down here. And this is the kind of thing that's happening. So it's in Santa Cruz, but he shares the winery, the facility, with the 3 other winemakers, and they all each have their own wine brand. By the way, the guy that I'm talking about is this guy. Very young dude, James Jelks is his last name. I don't even know what ethnicity Jelks is, but that's his name, James Jelks. The Florez wines started in 2017, so quite new. And he grew up in Santa Cruz area, went to UC Davis for the knowledge program. And then he kind of bounced around all over the globe, working for different wineries for about 10 years. And then he finally decided to come back in 2017 to start the Florez wineries in Santa Cruz, back in his hometown. He leases and farms his own vineyards. but he's also sourcing fruit from other organic and sustainable growers, like what's happening here, which is all the way from Mendocino, my Upton family. But what he kind of does is what you see a lot of these days in California, which is particularly these young guys. A little bit different from co-op structure in France and other parts of the world, where essentially the growers sell their grapes or wine, and then the co-op would either make the wine or blend the wine, and then they would slap their own label on it. And that's kind of the co-op structure in a lot of parts of the world. However, a lot of what you're seeing, starting to see in the States is that people keep their own labels. Everybody has their own labels, but it's more of like a winery incubator kind of a thing where they share I mean, we saw this with championship bottles in Oregon. You guys remember Saul, where he shares it with two other wineries. They're basically pulling their resources together because these are all young dudes and they don't have a lot of money, particularly in a place like California where the land is super expensive, to start their own winery with land. So they pull their resources and they are essentially forming these co-ops where they all share the equipment and the space and make the wine together. They help each other out with kind of the things that they're learning about different parts of California, sharing the knowledge. There's a whole article that was written, SF Chronicles, about these four guys who are working together, and one of them is still serving wine at the local wine bar, and other three will go there and drink with them. And so these are basically four friends who all have their own wine brands, but they're kind of helping each other out with whatever they need to do. And you're starting to see a lot of this happen in California. The days of this kind of a old, one singularly owned estate fruit and vineyard, kind of like you see in Napa and Sonoma, are long gone. Those guys, it's just quite frankly way too expensive for that to happen unless you struck it rich in Silicon Valley and coming up and starting a winery out of whatever is a diversification strategy or what other reason. The idea of somebody who just wants to make wine from his own land in places like Sonoma and Napa are pretty it rarely happens, if ever. So you're starting to see a lot of this, and there's another example of this happening later in this month with Martha Stauman, where she also makes wine in somebody else's winery, but has her own wine label. But what's changing is that for the longest time, a lot of these guys, and this is not anything new, this hasn't been happening, but the longest time, what a lot of these guys did was they never owned land or leased land. They just purchased fruit and made wine in the wineries and they sold it off. But what's happening with a lot of these guys is that they are kind of committing to a place and they're leasing the land. So they're actually farming the land themselves. So they get an understanding of the place, the soil. They're actually out there touching the soil, touching the fruit, and farming it themselves. And all four of them here are all leasing land and farming it themselves. So yeah, it's all one person operation as well. So very, very small. Just kind of like a ragtag army of young winemakers that are doing their things, which is to me super exciting. That there's a lot more experimental stuff that's happening. So, anyways, that's basically what's happening here. So, what is this wine? This 100% organically farmed Sauvignon Blanc from 50-plus-year-old vineyards that was originally planted in 1969 up in Red Valley by the Upton family. It's been farmed organically since the beginning. They are certified organic since 1990, but they've been farming organically since the beginning. This particular bottling was one of the first true sulfites-free experiments that James started in 2017. So this and a free solo, which is another bottling that he makes. Everything else, he does use a touch of sulfites, but these two have no sulfites on it. So we're talking about a 0-0 wine here. And for those of you who are not familiar with the 0-0 or just need a review, it essentially stands for no input in the vineyards, no input in the cellar. So not even sulfites, no copper, no sulfur, nothing in the field there at all. So these are kind of the wines that if the wine was required to have a nutrition label in the bag, all it would say is grapes. So yeah, we're talking about very raw, very kind of honest expression of the grape variety, the grape itself. But it is also the riskiest. It's kind of it's also a divisive kind of issue in the natural wine world, where some people can get really dogmatic about sulfite use. They're like, if it's not 0.0, it's not really a natural wine. I don't drink anything else that's a natural wine. There's also a lot of shitty natural 0.0 wines out there. Again, because it's very risky, a lot of things can go wrong. But what sulfites one of the things that I was reading in preparation for tonight, I read how James described his opinion or his attitude towards sulfites. And I've never heard it articulated this way, but I think it most closely relates to how I personally feel about sulfites these days, which is he said, I view sulfites medicinally. You don't take medicine without reason, but there are important times when needed, is what he said. And that's exactly how I feel about it. I'm not really dogmatic about sulfite use. If you need to use it, or get it. We also talk about this is people's livelihood, especially for these small guys, just because of your ideological stance on sulfites use, are you going to ruin your entire vintage because you decide not to use sulfites, or if you decide to use sulfites to save your vintage, like I'm not going to hold that against you. So I get it, but just this particular wine there's no added sulfites, but the fact that it is this kind of a stable and clean is a testament to his impeccable timing as well as a clean winemaking. So fruit is crushed, then left on their skins for 4 to 6 hours for aromatics and texture. So technically, I suppose you could call this orange wine, but it's a very, very short amount of time, 4 to 6. James tends to say that it does make a big difference. But yeah, 4 to 6 hours on the skins. The must is settled for 24 hours. Then it was racked the next day into a stainless steel tank, fermented with native yeast. Aged surly, which just means it's a French word for aging it on the lees, for 6 months before being racked again before bottling. So no filtering, no fining, no sulfites, no additives whatsoever on this wine. Yeah, that's what we got here. Any questions about anything I just went over before we get to tasting it? Excellent. Well, let's taste the wine. I would you take the appearance? Somebody? Hello? Hello? Ooh. All right, come on. Somebody take the appearance.
I'm feeding my dog. I'm going to be done in like 3 minutes. But if you wait for me, then great. Otherwise, I can do another one.
All right, somebody take the appearance, and Alice can take the news. How about that?
I'll take the appearance.
All right.
We're here. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. See, for me, it's hazy.
Yeah, it's definitely not clear, right? You can tell this is not a filtered wine.
Definitely not clear. Although Ryan's looks a little bit more clear than mine, but I think it just settled.
Mm.
Intensity. I feel like it's kind of intense for a white. Like I can't, at least for me, I can't see anything through it, but that could be because it's hazy. So maybe a medium.
Yeah. I would say this is about like medium lemon, hazy medium lemon is about what I would call this.
Did you jump to my color already? Is it lemon?
Oh, sorry. I guess I did. Yeah.
It's like he's either giving me a major hint or
Yeah, sorry. I got ahead of you. Yeah, I would say this is like a hazy medium lemon, pale gold. Yeah, you're totally right though. It has a little bit of color. It's not it's probably there's a 6 months in surly. It's probably what gives it some of this as well. And the skin contact. actually, is what probably gives it some of this color.
That's fine. Yeah. And then no other observations.
Yep. Excellent. Easy peasy.
Easy.
All right, Allison, you ready?
Okay, so I can be. What I will say is I only decanted it once. Does that matter?
Okay. No, that's
I
cool.
was just literally, as you said, Allison, are you ready? I was like attempting to pour it back into the bottle, but not very well.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
spilled.
Yeah,
But if it
just-
doesn't matter, I don't remember if decanting makes a difference in the smell.
I mean, it does, but yeah, I mean, you should be fine. Cool.
Okay, all right.
It's not that locked up. Like this one is still very expressive, but I just think it will get better. It will become even more expressive with the candy.
Okay, I will also say that I have like a minor virus of some sort, so I'm going to be even better than I usually am at doing the
Amazing.
smell.
Amazing. Let's do it.
You know, Un, I don't know if I will call this wine clean.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if I would call this clean either. This one is definitely not faulty. I would say this one is sound. No. But it's not squeaky clean here, right? You
It's a little
can
weird.
tell, yeah,
Mhm.
it's a little wild, for sure. There's an unusual kind of a non-typical kind of a aromas that you get off of a wine. So yeah, I agree. I say this is a little dirty in the best way, not faulty, sound but unclean. Intensity.
All right, medium.
Yeah. Where do you start smelling? How far are you from the rim, or is it right on the rim?
I
Your nose.
was like just sitting there trying to like rub my nose. I feel like it's maybe a little bit more than medium. I'm
Yeah.
not, listen, I'm not in my best space right now, as you can
That's
probably
true.
tell.
I'm gonna call this a medium plus. Like mine is, I smell it here, which is what is that? Like
Yeah,
2 to 3 inches off. So I'm gonna call this medium plus. It's quite aromatic. I mean, Sauvignon Blanc in general is an aromatic grape variety. So
that's true.
uh,
That's true.
medium plus aromas of, what do you get?
I definitely get gooseberry.
Yeah, I think gooseberry is an excellent pick.
Thank you.
Any floral?
I feel like yes.
Yeah, not hugely floral, but there's some floralness here.
Yeah.
Some sort of like, I don't know, elderflower or something.
An early blooming elderflower is what I was going
Yeah,
to say.
I could be convinced of some of that, some whiff of that, but I think your call of gooseberry is excellent.
Thank you.
Very, very typical thing for Sauvignon Blanc. That little bit of like little green, little passion fruity kind of a thing, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Gooseberry. What else?
I'm feeling quince, even though I still don't really know what a quince is, but I'm like getting quince vibes nonetheless.
Yep.
Maybe a little
You can
bit
see
of
that.
green apple.
You can see that. Okay.
I feel like I'm supposed to get citrus fruit, but I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I get citrus here. I get like
Yeah.
preserved lemon. There's some like a briny vibe about it. There's something salty. It's not just like a fresh lemon. Like there's like a salted lemon kind of a thing going on
Mm-hmm.
here. Maybe like Meyer lemon, salted Meyer lemon kind of a thing. What
Yes.
else?
Tons of red fruit.
Tons of red fruit.
Well, you said passion fruit already.
Yeah, there's a touch of tropical here, which is a very, very typical thing for California Sauvignon Blanc, particularly like a Napa Sauvignon Blanc, which is it gets really hot, and Sauvignon Blanc is not something that grows in a very hot place like that. So when Sauvignon
Mm-hmm.
Blanc grows in places like Napa Valley, particularly Napa Flor, it gets a lot of this like tropical note. There, so Sauvignon Blanc from like France, right? Like Loire Valley, Sancerre, it's very cold. It's continental, so you get a lot of
Mm-hmm.
that green, a lot of like um, fresh cut grass, a lot of minerality, a lot of minerality, acid, but not passion fruit or not any of this tropical fruit. The only time
Mhm.
you're going to get tropical fruit with the Sauvignon Blanc is when it's grown in a warm climate like Napa, Australia, parts of Australia, and things like that. So
Mhm.
if you are getting this on an exam, these are kind of the things that will point you towards like, is this old world? Is this new world? Like just by smelling, honestly, like just off the nose, I can tell this was Sauvignon Blanc because that kind of like the elderflower, a little bit of floral, all that green fruit that you pulled out, I think I mean, it's like dead on for Sauvignon Blanc,
Mhm.
gooseberry, touch of like pins, some of that, and then obviously the citrus. But then the presence of passion for some of this tropical note is what would take me straight to California. I'm like, or Australia, it could be Australia, but this is definitely not cider. This is definitely not old world, cold, cool climate Sauvignon Blanc. This is definitely in the warmer climate. But this is pretty much very balanced though. Like some of these can get really, really over the top, passion fruity and tropical. But this one is not like that. But definitely some passion fruit. There's definitely some tropical fruit running through here for sure. Um, no red fruit, no black fruit. How about the nature of the fruit?
Ripe or slightly underripe, I feel.
Yes, I think the underripe is always a good call with Sauvignon Blanc. Sauvignon Blanc just naturally has a quite high piercing, like Cabernet
Mhm.
Franc, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot even. Um, so yeah, there's a little bit of that underripeness here for sure, a little bit of touch of green, but overall, like it's not again. If you're to compare this to Sancerre, it's nothing like that underripe. This is still
Mhm.
very, very ripe, fresh, but there's a touch of that just that green note that's running through, which
Mhm.
leads you into the next part, which is any herbaceous, any herbal, anything like that.
I feel like yes, but nothing specifically is jumping out at me. Probably because my nose isn't quite working today.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be anything in particular, but like you've
Oh, it
noted
doesn't.
this, you've already noted this quite a bit, which is that there's a bit of the undercurrent of underripe, a little bit like green, which is exactly what we're trying to pull out. Any spice, any minerality, anything like that?
I feel like I get a little bit of maybe minerality.
Yeah, too. I mean, I keep saying about that kind of like there's something salty, something briny
Mhm.
about this, something like a little crushed rock kind of sort as well. But yeah, turn two of like a sea salt kind of a thing. Um, and yeah, that yeah. Any secondary, any tertiary?
No.
Yeah, me neither. This one is still very fresh. We're talking about everything kind of existing here. Touch of floral, ton of green fruit, citrus fruit, touch of tropical as well. You got this kind of like a ripe, just underripe kind of a fruit. Some green notes, kind of briny, sea salty, like sea spray kind of a thing going on here with a little bit of rockiness. So yeah, excellent, excellent job. You get to
Thank you.
pick the next person for the palette.
Hmm. I've already forgotten who did the appearance.
Leah did.
Cecilia.
Okay.
All right.
I've only been half listening because I'm also working, so I guess I won't get to cheat on what Allison said about the nose.
All right. Let's start with the sweetness.
It is dry.
This one is definitely dry. Acidity.
Medium plus to high.
Yeah.
It's pretty acidic.
Yep. It's got a good acid. It's one of the things I love about this wine is that there's intensity about these fruits, right? Like everything's right. I mean, again, this is everything about this wine points you to New World wine. There's nowhere where it just takes you to Old World wine.
Yeah.
It has a really ripe, it has abundance of fruit, really generous amount of fruit on here. But and really ripe, but none of this is it's not losing that acidity. And again, that's both the Sauvignon Blanc itself, which is a pretty high acidity grape, but also the place where it comes from, the diurnal shift of California, Mendocino being a cooler place than the rest of California. So a lot of that really helps with retaining that acidity.
It's really tasty. We had it with some the spicy buckwheat Korean noodles. We ordered some.
How was it? Did it work?
It was beautiful. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing, love it. Tannin, obviously, we don't talk about that. And then alcohol.
It tastes medium to me, like 11, 12%.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't look at
Yeah,
the bottle.
to me, like it tastes like 12.5. 12. Yeah. So this is another thing, right? Like, I mean, Sauvignon Blanc is never going to get like super high, but you can find all the way, I've seen like 13.5 Sauvignon Blanc from Napa Valley, Florida. I keep bringing Napa Valley, even though this is from Mendocino, which is not from not Napa, because that's kind of like the reference point Sauvignon Blanc style for California. So the fact that this is in a much cooler place, it's the alcohol is way dialed back, much more reasonable at 12%, and yet you're not losing any of that abundance of fruit and any of that is what's beautiful about this wine. Like it speaks volume of its farming. Like the Upton family who farmed this, they grew beautiful fruit that you were able to coax all these flavors, get it to all of this state, but yet while keeping the sugar development in check, so that you can make this refreshing wine with a body.
Medium minus medium. It's got a little more body than like other
Agreed.
Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah, I'll call this. Yeah, this is somewhere between medium minus and medium. Kind of like leaning toward my wine is not super cold, so I'm leaning towards medium right now. But Cecilia's comment, it's got some weight, right? Like you would expect Sauvignon Blanc to be quite light, because Sauvignon Blanc is light. But the fact that it has this kind of a texture and weight, and that's the winemaking. He put this on the skins for a little bit, as well as he put this on the lees for a little bit. All that helps with the building body into the wine. So that's why he was able to push this into that kind of like high medium minus low medium kind of territories. But yeah, it's got some weight. Not like I'm not calling it a full bodied wine in any way, but it's not a skim milk.
Yeah, what's typical of this grape.
Exactly. We're going to talk about mousse, flavor intensity.
I think I'm right in the middle with medium.
Yeah, this is where I'm like somewhere between medium and medium plus. It's like I want to be generous and give it to medium plus. But yeah, like to me, there's nothing that's is shy about it. So I'm gonna be generous and give it to medium plus, but this is like high in the medium, lower in the medium plus is kind of where I am with this one. But I'm gonna be generous and give it to medium, but medium plus. But if you wear medium, that's totally fine too. All right. So flavor characteristics. Just call out some of the things that are coming at you right now off the top, and then let's see if that coincides with what Allison said, and then I'll tell you what I want to call out.
I heard someone say gooseberry, but I don't. My palate's not that great, so I don't know that I taste it. Definitely green apple, definitely lemon peel.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of lemon.
Yeah, ton of citrus for sure. Anything else?
There's I don't know, I feel like there's something else, maybe a little like apricot a little bit.
Yeah, we didn't call that stone fruit, but there's a tropical fruit that we call that, like the passion fruit.
Passion fruit. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
see that. Yeah.
But with the passion fruit also comes a kind of gooseberry. I feel like gooseberry and passion fruit are kind of similar. They're not exactly the same. But some other things, so Allison picked out, which was there's a touch of floral here. It's like the elderflower. I'm not. I get a little bit of chamomile as well, but yeah. So touch of floral, not like super floral, but touch of floral. green fruit. She picked out quite a bit. So some gooseberry, some quince, some green apple, things like that. Citrus.
I think I don't know what quince tastes like.
Yeah. I feel like we need to do a quince smell off or taste off with the wine club folks. It's like I feel like most people don't know what quince smells and tastes like. It's very aromatic, kind of like appley, kind of peary. Anyways, we'll figure it out. Lemon, ton of lemon, a lot of lemon. I get like preserved lemon as well, like kind of like the briny kind of a thing. I get a lot of like sea spray kind of a nature thing, kind of a vibe going on here. Tropical fruit, passion fruit. I call that passion fruit. And then this is the hallmark of the New World Sauvignon Blanc versus Older World Sauvignon Blanc. This tropical note, the passion fruit, maybe sometimes mango. You can get it with if it comes from a really warm place. No red, no black. Really fresh and ripe, but there's a kind of an undercurrent of an underripe fruit that's running through here. But to me, it's not necessarily the fruit, but it's more of there's these kind of like a little touch of green notes here, which is very typical of Sauvignon Blanc. It's just a naturally high in pyrazine, which gives that kind of like freshly cut grass, jalapeno kind of a thing. So yeah, the fruits themselves feel very ripe to me, fresh and ripe to me, but there's definitely undercurrent of this kind of green, kind of pyrazine, kind of a nature that's going on here. No spice. And as far as minerality goes, to me, this is again there's that kind of salty tang, sea foam, sea breeze kind of a thing going on here as well. And then do you get any secondary, any tertiary on the?
I don't think so. It tastes really fresh to me.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I did put on these for 6 months, but I don't get any like sign of these autolytic things. To me, this is all right here, all in the very primary, kind of very fresh kind of a German wine. Finally, the length.
It stays. So I like medium plus.
It's got some length, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Really good concentration, really good length. Yeah. I don't call this like a high end of medium, lower end of medium plus, but yeah, let's be generous. I'm gonna call it medium plus as well. So conclusion.
The acid sticks around a while.
Yeah. I mean, acid. I mean, as you guys all know, acid on this thing is really what got me at first. I'm like, holy shit, there's so much fruit here, but yet the acid is screaming. Love it. All right. So take it home for us. How good is this wine, and would you age it?
I think good to very good. And I guess since you said it sat on the lees, I'd be interested to see what happens when it ages. But probably can't lay it down for too long. But I don't know.
Yeah. Balanced, complexity wise, we call that it's all in the primary, but we call that bunch of stuff in the primary, right? Floral, green fruit, bunch of green fruit, citrus, pyrazine, sea breeze, sea salt. Yeah, we call a bunch of stuff. So call that what? High in the medium, low in the medium plus maybe, but let's call it medium. Somewhere in the between medium plus. Concentration, we'll call it medium plus on the nose. You call it medium on the palate. I call it medium plus on the palate, but somewhere between medium plus. Medium plus on the nose, somewhere between medium plus on the palate. So somewhere between closer to medium plus, so let's call that medium plus. And then the length, we called it again between medium and medium plus, leaning towards medium plus. So we're kind of somewhere between medium to medium plus when you take the average, all of that. So again, falls in between some good and very good, but I'm going to call this very good, generous taster that I am. And then readiness for drinking. It does have good acid, has a structure, right?
Yeah.
And then it has a concentration. We call it, medium to medium plus, leading on medium plus. It has already some good level of complexity, medium to medium plus again. So I think I'd be interested to see how this does over time, but I think it's also delicious right now. I think it's drinking beautifully. I think that the freshness and all that generosity fruit is really what's delicious about this wine. Maybe it's the influence of the label, but like sitting by the beach, drinking like a cold glass of this wine at this, which sounds amazing to me. but I would say because that acid is so searing, I would say this probably, I don't know, 3, 5 maybe at most. I would say come back in 2 to 3 years if you're interested in laying it down, just see where it goes. And it will probably drink just fine until 5. But quite frankly, if you ask me, I think this is for now. Like I say, drink this now, enjoy it as the freshness. To me, what's beautiful about this wine is all that fresh fruit, all that freshness with that acidity in the back that keeps it really lively. I don't know, and I would necessarily be looking for some sort of like a savory complexity to this wine. Like that's not what I want this wine for. So I don't think it will go bad in the next 5 years, but then it'd be fun to experiment, maybe just to see where it goes. But I'll say drink this now, come back in 2 to 3 years to check it. Like you said, not meant for aging for a long time. Excellent. Great job. Any questions? Any disagreements? Excellent. What do you guys think about this wine? I'm curious.
So good.
So good?
Love it.
And you're right there. You're in California.
I know.
I have to come to DC for it to make its way back out to you.
I know. I was worried because it arrived kind of hot, but it's good.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah.
Liking
any
it
other
better.
opinion?
I was getting hints of ammonia for a while.
Ammonia. Okay. No cappy.
I think it's kind of calmed down a bit.
Yeah.
I double decanted it, and
Yeah.
at first it was just like, whoa, like.
I mean, it is Sauvignon Blanc after all.
Yeah, sure.
Does have a little bit of that cappy for sure.
But it's good. It's good.
Yeah. Anything else? Did anybody not like this one? Tell me more for people who are saying so. Tell me.
I mean, I drank it. I'm not sure I would buy it.
Okay.
Like if you offered it to me, I will drink it. It's
Yeah.
I think it's fine. It's lovely day out here. It seems like a perfect wine for that.
Yeah.
I wish I had some Korean buckwheat spicy noodles, but I don't. So I don't know. It's fine. Doesn't blow my socks off.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, sorry, Allison. What were you saying?
No, I was gonna say basically that.
Okay.
It's like a little too tart for me to like
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah.
But I don't dislike it. I just wouldn't opt for it
Yeah.
with other options.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what I like about this wine is that it is such a quintessential California Sauvignon Blanc, but it's not, right? Like it hits kind of some of those benchmarks of what you want from California Sauvignon Blanc if you're a California Sauvignon Blanc drinker, right? It's got that tropical note. It's got that abundance of fruit. It's got the acid. It's got touch of that green thing going on. You hit all of that, but at the same time, it's so well balanced here. Like, to me, the fruit, the amount of fruit versus the ripeness of the fruit versus the acid, the alcohol's in check. There's a liveliness about this wine. It feels like this wine feels very live. Um, and the fact that this is the kind of stuff that's coming out right, going up against all that Sauvignon Blanc that's being pumped out of California, I think is cool. And I think this is the kind of stuff that California should invest more time into kind of making and going out into Mendocino and also making it from Mendocino, not from Napa. So yeah, I don't know. I like this wine quite a bit. So there we are. All right, let's play this game. How much do you think this wine is on a retail shelf? How much would you be happy to pay for this on a retail shelf? Oh, and the fact that this is 0-0. Like, there are a lot of fucked up 0-0 wines coming out of California. This is fantastic. Great. 28, 25, 26, 25, 28, 40. All right, Shannon. 25, 30, 24. All right. Those are kind of in the ballpark. This wine on a retail shelf would be 27 bucks. So, yeah, for 27 bucks, I think it is fantastic. Like, outside of cheap ass California wines, the Savvy B that you're gonna find, like the actually handcrafted, real artisanal Savvy B for a small producer for 27 bucks, I think it's a killer deal. I'll drink that for 27 bucks any day for sure.
My mother-in-law will only drink Sauv Blanc, and it's like all the cheapest, schlockiest,
Yeah.
And I think if I serve this to her, her mind might explode.
Yeah, I think you should. I would love to see what she says. She's like, "What? This is not Sauvignon Blanc." Yeah, it's great. Any questions?
I think this is so kind of sharp and tart. I think this would be like one of those good whites to serve with like Asian food.
100%.
Like
100%.
something really super savory, even sushi kind of would be.
Yeah, I think this would be good with sushi. I
On
want to
its
go with
own, like I don't think you can like this is I don't think this is really good for drinking on its own personally. I think you gotta just have this with like a crazy meal like that.
Yeah. And because it's got that so much of the fruit, I would stay away from like something super like delicate, like white, like a flounder piece of sushi or something. But it will probably do very well with a richer cuts of sushi for sure. Um, it can go a lot of ways with this thing. Yeah, I mean, the reason I mentioned I suggested naengmyeon on the thing, and I haven't tried it myself. It just came to me as soon as I tasted it. Um, there's that little bit of like the piece of that pear, piece of that fruit kind of a thing running through, but it's also got vinegar. Um, it's got the beefiness, but it kind of cuts through with the acid, the fruit playing on with the savory. Yeah, I just thought it would be good.
I would have this with like kimchi.
Yeah, yeah. For sure, like a salty, strong flavor Asian food for sure. Spices, yeah, we'll do well. Underripe mango salad, yeah, totally. I think it'd be great. Yeah, totally. Salad, goat cheese, Sauvignon Blanc, always a good combination. So yeah, awesome. Any questions?
So I have a question.
Yeah.
The whole phylloxera thing happened like a century before the whole Judgment of Paris, and like all the rootstock of the grapes in Europe was replaced with American rootstock, as I understand it, right? So
a lot of it, majority of it, yes.
Right, but so like, how? I guess it was still we're talking about the Native American varieties, so all the stuff that was then planted in California with the missionaries and all what you were talking about, the mission and the Italians, like it was all those were all European grapes, but still on American rootstock, right?
From back then, yeah. So they came back as that, but the original, the American varieties from came up were own stocks, yes. But the ones that came back and then they were planted by like the Italian immigrants and whatnot, yes, they were already back on.
When you say like a Sauv Blanc was imported to the U.S. and planted in California, they're using an American rootstock, like a Native American rootstock, and then a Sauv Blanc kind of grafted, right? Like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like they came here and then they brought the disease back and wiped out their motherland, the old country. So they had to go back and find the cure and where they got the disease from. It's kind of the story. Yeah. Yep. Any other questions? Cool. Well, I'm going to stop the recording in that case.